continuing narratives, and how to end them. How do you create a satisfying ending to a continuing narrative? Here, I'm using continuing narrative to describe a story that is told over multiple episodes. Be that a TV series or a film franchise, a serialized story that is told in episodic chunks. This is common in TV, but we are seeing this more and more in film with cinematic universes like the MCU. Specifically, I want to dig into how a narrative that is designed to be continuous can end in a satisfying way. How can it meet our expectations? Is it even up to the show itself to manage our expectations leading to the finale? The aim of a TV show used to be syndication, to reach 100 episodes that could then be re-aired in any order. A legacy series that could continue to make money long after its final episode has aired. An ever-continuing narrative. A story that we can perpetually exist in the middle of. We can live forever on the couch with our friends, in familiarity, comfort, while the creators have a guaranteed paycheck. But this can't last forever. Audiences eventually move on. Times change. Whether we have grown out of it, or the premise has been milked dry, continuing narratives can find themselves in a stale half-life, no longer lit by the flame of creativity, but not quite dead. They start to become a lesser version of themselves, as they simply start to run out of ideas, or the idea itself, the initial premise, normalizes and becomes boring. Like eating your favorite meal every single night, we eventually will get sick of it. Nothing can last forever. For life to have meaning, you need to eventually die. Recently, TV shows have wanted an end, a narrative conclusion to build towards. Audiences have wanted the catharsis of resolution, showrunners have wanted a sense of completion for their work. So, how can an ending in a medium that was designed to be continuing be satisfying when the aim of the show up until now has been in its continuation? I'm going to argue that you have to know the ending from the start. And I'm not just meaning the writers, I'm meaning the audience. For a series to meet our expectations, we have to know where it ends from the very beginning. The promises that have been made to us at the start of the series have to be fulfilled. We have to know roughly how the story will end from the start. I want to use Hitchcock's analogy for creating suspense in film to talk about audiences' expectation for endings. Hitchcock uses a dinner table scene as an example. It's ordinary and a little bit mundane. Then the table explodes. Here you have a surprise, but leading up to that moment the scene was maybe a little boring. But if you tell your audience that the bomb is underneath the table, that it will detonate at 1 o'clock, you set a clock in the background, suddenly that scene has suspense. That's Hitchcock's take on suspense. In that scene, we know one of two things are going to happen. The bomb is discovered and everyone escapes, or it explodes and everybody dies. So even in knowing the outcome, we are still in suspense for what's going to happen. Would it be satisfying if the bomb explodes? Yeah. Potentially heartbreaking if we liked the characters, but cathartic and exciting nonetheless. Is it satisfying if the characters find and disarm the bomb, or manage to escape at the very last second? Again, yes, we may feel relief these characters survived. Would we be satisfied if the characters never found the bomb, the clock struck 1, and the bomb simply didn't go off at all? Let's start with a good ending to a TV series, and compare that to Hitchcock's Bomb. Breaking Bad constantly moved towards its conclusion, a conclusion that we all knew from the beginning. Showrunner Vince Gilligan told us where the narrative would end, taking Mr. Chips and turning him into Scarface. Even Walter White in the pilot episode told us it was the story of change. From the start, we knew this story was about timid Walter White becoming a bad guy. If the Star Wars prequels had been successful, this would probably have been likened to turning Anakin Skywalker into Darth Vader. So that's the premise. But does it tell us how it ends? Walter has cancer. He's becoming a criminal. Walter White is going to die. So the question that the show asks are simple. How bad will Walter White become? What happens when his family find out? How is he going to die? These are simple questions, and Breaking Bad answers these questions in a way that you could very easily predict from the beginning. Yet, it is still satisfying to see it through to its conclusion. So Breaking Bad told us that Walter White is the bomb. By the end of it, he is going to explode. The suspense is in what casualties there are going to be along the way. And the catharsis is in finally seeing it happen. We know the ending. Yet the series still ends in a satisfying way. Probably one of the most satisfying endings of a TV show to date. I'd argue that this is because our expectations were clearly set from the start. Breaking Bad had faith that we would want to be on that journey with them, even though we knew the ending. And as it got closer and closer to that bomb going off, the more and more suspenseful the show became, the more cathartic the eventual release was. So now to contrast this with a bad ending. In Dexter, the titular character Dexter also acts as the series' bomb. The question the series asks are very similar to Breaking Bad's. But rather than building to a large cathartic explosion, in Dexter, the bomb they set up at the start never goes off. Dexter is secretly a murderer working alongside the police. We like him because he kills people who deserve it. He kills other killers. So as an audience, what are your expectations for the ending set by this premise? A killer who works with detectives, his sister a policewoman. The questions are, what happens when everyone finds out? Will Dexter get caught? Will he die? This is the dangling carrot of suspense that kept me watching the show during its iffier seasons. The series announces that it is about to end when we have the moment a dinner guest discovers the bomb under the table. Deborah, Dexter's sister, finds out who Dexter really is. Her brother is a serial killer. The bomb is about to explode. What's going to happen when everyone finds out? Will Dexter's sister try and take him down? Will she work with him, become like him? Breaking Bad spent its last 2 seasons tying up loose ends, resolving almost everything it set up. All that it promised throughout the seasons beforehand, it resolved. While Dexter, which aired at the same time, spent its final season introducing new characters and plot points. While Breaking Bad was hurtling towards its ending, Dexter was mucking around trying to avoid it. Deborah, in about 3 episodes, just accepted who Dexter was. That conflict was over. It's a bit like if someone discovered that their brother was the one who placed the bomb under the dinner table and kind of just decided that they didn't care. But it's okay, because the bomb can still go off, right? I'm gonna take a break from reality here, and rather than explain what actually happened, talk about what could have happened. Imagine, if you will, Dexter's penultimate season ending with his friends finding out who he was. That their co-worker, their friend, in Deborah's case her brother, was the serial killer that they were hunting all along. Maybe it's Deborah, amateur detective, who starts unraveling the threads of who her brother really is. Lovable Detective Batista consoles her, her crooked cop boyfriend Quinn swears he'll kill him. Dexter is on the run, his friends are hunting him. This is what many viewers expected the final season would be. I'd argue these expectations are valid. These are expectations that the series itself set up from the start. The dinner guests have found the bomb. Will it go off, or will they disarm it? In reality, no one but Deborah found out who Dexter was, and ultimately, she didn't really care. The supporting characters, Dexter's co-workers, remember the detectives, they never found out. They didn't really do anything in the final season except for let Dexter go when he was arrested for something unrelated to him being a killer. Deborah dies, Dexter drops off her body, he fucks off to become a lumberjack. The bomb never exploded, it just fizzled out. Maybe Dexter wanted to surprise us, to subvert our expectations. The bomb didn't go off, it's now just in another room. But by not ending in a way that we thought it would, Dexter left us, its audience, unsatisfied, deprived of potential catharsis. Now, let's imagine an ending that is roughly what we viewers expected. Aware that Dexter is a killer, Deborah and Quinn hunt him down. Off the books, against orders, they chase after him. Who do we want to win? Action, a fight, Dexter beats Quinn. Deborah now has to decide whether she can arrest her own brother, her ex-lover. She chooses to let him go. Enter lovable Detective Batista. He sizes up the scene, realizes that Deborah is letting Dexter leave, but he won't. Batista can't let Dexter escape. Now Dexter has to choose: kill his friend and escape, or surrender and go to prison. His dark passenger takes over. He kills Batista. Deborah screams. In allowing Dexter to escape, she inadvertently let Batista get killed. She has seen her brother murder her friend, an innocent. Deborah has to take Dexter down. The series then ends with Deborah arresting Dexter. He sits in his cell like Hannibal Lecter, the kind killer, finally locked away. Or Deborah kills him, and as he's dying, he wonders if he even feels regret. Would that have been more satisfying? Actual catharsis, a sense of moral justice, or at least karma? At the very least, some form of resolution. Dexter, as a series, failed to manage our expectations. It failed to live up to its initial promise. So in those examples, Breaking Bad did exactly what we expected and was widely considered satisfying. While Dexter didn't, it left its narrative open, possibly in the hopes of continuing. It was never the best series overall, but it was enjoyable, and from the start offered a potentially exciting conclusion that it unfortunately never delivered. Ultimately, Dexter ended in a way that we didn't expect, and that left us unsatisfied as a result. Dexter's very premise suggested conclusion. Some narratives can end with a story that is continuing. A Star Trek series could end with the Starship Enterprise going off to explore the outer reaches of space. Buffy can end with a team of Slayers continuing their adventure. A story that leaves you to dream about what adventures the characters have ahead can still be exciting, but I would argue that these narratives never promised overarching resolution from the beginning. These are more episodic adventures where the bomb is disarmed every episode, leaving that story with the idea that more bombs will be defused in the future. That is arguably the best way to end that kind of show. But again, Dexter in its premise promised resolution, and therefore left us unsatisfied when it ended unresolved. So let's do one more. Game of Thrones. Let's look at the questions that Game of Thrones sets up at the beginning of the series. Will the White Walkers win? Who will take the Iron Throne? The answers to these questions are answered in Game of Thrones, but the answers aren't satisfying. Game of Thrones went with something in the middle, between showing us the bomb and trying to surprise us with the explosion. The bomb in Game of Thrones that's been set up since the opening scene of the show goes off at the beginning of the season and doesn't amount to much. Winter is coming. The White Walkers introduced in the first 5 minutes of Game of Thrones, mentioned in every piece of marketing leading up to the final season, amounted to nothing. They are defeated in a single episode and didn't impact the world of the show at all. The White Walkers are an army of zombies, constantly marching south, destroying everything in their path. For the majority of Game of Thrones, this threat has been ever present, a threat most people have been ignoring. The expectation that is set up by having them appear in the first scene of the show, by constantly repeating that they are coming, is that they will have some sort of impact on the world and its characters. But they don't. Banding to defeat them lets us have a fun reunion between characters that we like. The sequence is relatively intense, but the White Walkers are defeated with a Deus Ex Machina, an overly simple solution that comes out of nowhere. Kill the Night King, and the rest will fall. Setting this up before the battle is kind of the opposite of Hitchcock's idea on suspense. When a character says, if you kill the Night King, the rest of them will fall, what do we think's going to happen? They're going to kill the Night King, and the rest will fall. That's the only option here. This overwhelming force, built up for seasons of the show, is quickly disposed of by a character who had no ties to their story. This character didn't even use the powers that she had to win. She just gave it a quick stab and it was over. If this was the final episode, this may have been somewhat satisfying. The answer to the question that we've had since the start of will they win against the White Walkers is resolved. But it's not the end, and the win didn't really change the world that they occupy. Think about how the world of Breaking Bad changed when Hank found out who Walter White was. The episodes after that were heightened as a result. We were building towards conflict and resolution. Westeros didn't change at all when the most important threat of the entire series was wiped away 3 episodes into the final season. Those who ignored the threat didn't face repercussions. No one important died during the battle, nothing was lost. The point of the White Walkers was to highlight how petty the squabbles over the throne were. No matter who ended up taking the throne, if we didn't put aside our differences and work together to stop the White Walkers, none of it would matter. The White Walkers would win. But, as it turns out, the throne wasn't in danger from the White Walkers at all. Cersei happily sat that one out and had no consequences for not dealing with it. In a way, this shows that she was right to not care. Someone else will fix the problem for her. As far as storytelling is concerned, this sucks. It sucks even more when you realize how perfectly the global warming analogy could have played out. If we don't all deal with it together, we lose. By having an easy solution to this problem, we can continue to just ignore it. Because this real-world threat, like in Game of Thrones, will probably just be fixed by someone else, right? So why bother doing anything about it? Where if they had, say, lost to the White Walkers because they couldn't band together, then we as an audience may leave thinking, fuck, if only they hadn't fucked around on pointless shit, they could have saved the world. Maybe we should try a bit harder so that the world doesn't end up like Westeros. The second question Game of Thrones has asked since the beginning is who will take the throne? Although we have a multitude of potential answers to this question, our expectations are set here that it should be one of the characters focused on from the beginning. You could argue that the pilot episode finishing with Bran falling out of the tower makes him the character that would be most interesting to become king, because he is the most unlikely and has the furthest journey to take. But that would only work if our expectations were managed throughout the entire series. He would have to seem like a possibility the whole way through. His character would have to be relevant to the core story. Instead, throughout the series he doesn't matter at all, to the point where we have an entire season without him. The show doesn't build to this answer. It doesn't manage our expectations by foreshadowing that he could be the answer to the question of who will take the throne. If the question at the start of Game of Thrones is who is going to deal with the bomb, the answer shouldn't be the kid playing football outside. It should be someone who is in the room with it. If we treat the entire first season as setting up the audience's expectations, then our expectations of Game of Thrones is that it is a brutal world where things won't play out like we want them to. Not that our expectations will be subverted, but that the things we want to happen won't necessarily happen. This isn't subversion, it is the expectation. We expect bad things to happen in Game of Thrones. That is what we have had set up since the beginning. Using the bomb analogy for Game of Thrones again, our expectation then is that the bomb will go off. The question is what will be left. I think there is one ending to Game of Thrones that could still surprise us while working within the expectations the show had set up. Let's imagine that ending. Jon Snow meets Daenerys. He tries to convince her to help him defeat the White Walkers before attempting to take the throne. Dany's goal throughout the entire series has been to be queen. What Jon is suggesting could derail that. The plans are in motion. She is so close to having what she wants. She refuses Jon and takes King's Landing instead. During Dany's battle at King's Landing, Arya kills Cersei. Using her face swap powers, she terrorizes her appearing as Joffrey. A chilling end to Cersei. Dany takes the throne. She has won. She's queen. But winter is coming. Jon lost the battle for Winterfell against the White Walkers. He leads the surviving few towards King's Landing, their last hope. Both Jon's army and Dany's are broken. They are now woefully unprepared. The White Walkers attack King's Landing. The battle begins. Wildfire, dragons, special swords, it doesn't matter. The White Walkers are overwhelming. Jon, channeling his inner Lord of Light, approaches the Night King. The Night King's dragon breathes fire on him. Is Jon dead? No. As it's been established earlier in the show, Targaryens are immune to fire. He defeats the Night King. We have a moment of catharsis. Like the Battle of the Bastards, Jon stands on a pile of bodies. Bodies that rise, ready to consume him. We had our hero moment, but that wasn't enough. Game of Thrones is brutal towards heroes. Jon is overrun and killed. With the Night King dead, the remaining zombies are now more like wild animals. Dany watches as the kingdom she just saved burns to the ground. She is now the Queen of Ashes. The dragons and our remaining heroes kill the rest of the White Walkers. They've won, but at a major cost. The remaining Stark children leave to reclaim the North. Disappointed with Dany, they secede from the Seven Kingdoms. The world they have been left is destroyed by the pettiness of the generation before them. They will grow to make a difference, to build a better world from the ashes. Thematically, this would hit the global warming analogy, a threat ignored that we left to future generations to deal with. It would also have played into our expectations for things not going how we want them to in the world of Game of Thrones. One last Red Wedding style moment to end the series. With a small glimmer of hope as the children are left to rebuild in the aftermath, HBO wouldn't be talking about prequels, they'd be talking about sequels. Whether or not you agree with that being a better ending for Game of Thrones, it at least would fall within the expectations that the show has set up. By not managing our expectations and by setting up expectations that the show had no interest in paying off, the show left us unsatisfied. A world we could have returned to over and over again is now tainted by the knowledge of its ending. In stark contrast to Breaking Bad, where every bit of dialogue was foreshadowing something important, or forwarding the characters, Game of Thrones left moments that could easily have been paid off unresolved, making those scenes on rewatch seem pointless. Why lay these foundations if you weren't going to build on them? So in conclusion, I strongly believe that it is up to the series itself to manage the expectations of an audience by telling us what questions are important from the very beginning. To create a satisfying ending, those questions must be answered in a way that we expect them to. It is entirely within the control of the writers to manage our expectations throughout the series. A mystery series might tell us it won't give us answers, therefore when it ends on yet another mystery, it can still be satisfying. A continuing narrative that aims to be forever continuing can end with the adventures ongoing if we are told this story will be ongoing from the start. But if we are shown a bomb, we had better see that bomb go off. If we are building towards a conclusion, that conclusion needs to be what we expected. So what was your favourite ending to a TV show? Did you have a rough idea from the start as to how it would end? If you want more like this, I'm working on a new video titled Death of the Chosen One, dealing with Chosen One narratives, and my very first video, Persona 5 vs Twin Peaks, is already on my channel now if that sounds interesting to you.